So Hannah Duston, who is pictured here in two of the monuments, she has a number of monuments erected to her, most of which, as I mentioned, put up in the 19th century, a few in the early 20th century, one in the early 20th century, rather. She is also the woman who is the earliest publicly funded monument of a woman in the United States. And that's her monument in New Hampshire, a close-up of which you see on the left. And this is, I think, an interesting choice that tells us a lot about what Americans were choosing to commemorate and celebrate about their colonial past in the 19th century, because Hannah Duston is a colonial Massachusetts Protestant woman and mother who was taken captive by Abenaki Indians from Quebec during King William's War in 1697. So King William's War was one of the series of these wars we've discussed in this class quite a bit. These wars between Indigenous people pivoted around competing claims that French and English imperial interests had for North American territory, and of course clashing interests among Native peoples as well that intersected with all of these. So as we've discussed, people are taken captive in these Indian wars. Hannah Duston was one of these. And she was taken captive along with her newborn daughter. Along the march from Massachusetts to New Hampshire, where she ended up while captive, the Indigenous people who captured her killed her daughter, who was only 6 days old, by smashing her head against a tree, as Hannah Duston recalls it. While captive in New Hampshire, Hannah Duston sort of in a very grisly fashion, returns the favor. She's taken captive not just with her infant daughter, but also with the woman who was helping to nurse her through her pregnancy and recovery from the birth. And when they arrived in this island in New Hampshire, where they were stopping with the people who had taken her captive, she, Hannah Duston, along with the other woman with her, and Samuel Lenerson, who was a teenage boy who had been captured separately. The three of them decide to rise up in the night and free themselves, which is understandable. What they do next is slightly less understandable to contemporary points of view. They decided to rise up and kill and scalp 10 Native Americans, including 2 men, 2 women, and 6 children, and returned with the scalps as bounty. And in fact, not only returned with the scalps as proof of what they'd done, but petitioned the Massachusetts authorities, the legislature, to pay them for the scalps, which in fact they did. And so not only is this moment celebrated at the time, and the scalps of these Indian men, women, and children is rewarded with money from the Massachusetts government, Hannah Duston is celebrated enough so that she does have these statues erected to her. And of course, this also was defaced this summer, a reminder that women are complicit in these complicated pasts as well as men.